Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Globally connected. Military Family Matters with partner and family caregiver Keisha L. Jackson. Today is Saturday, March 5th, 2022. March is National Women's History Month and Disability Awareness Month. The host is Kelley. I am Sean Claiborne, the co-host. The executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And also, don't forget, right now, you can see us live on Facebook Live right now. Go to Google, go to YouTube. You can also see us on Zonder TV's network. We just had her on that last segment. Watch America's Heroes Group, like and share the information so people can be served. And we have our partner on the line, Keisha L. Jackson. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver. Welcome back, Keisha.
Hey, it's good to be here. How are you today?
Pretty good, very good. And she has brought us a very special guest, a panelist, Mr. Gary Barg, editor-in-chief of Caregiver.com. How you doing today?
I am fine. Thank you for inviting me. It's a wonderful show. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that. So, Gary, tell us about Caregiver.com first. Let us know what that is, how did it start, and
Sure.
what resources do you provide?
Well, everything we do at Caregiver Media Group, and Caregiver.com, today's Caregiver Magazine, the Fearless Caregiver Conferences, and our books and all the media have to do with our love.
First, before we get there, let us know what Caregiver.com is, because most people have never heard of Caregiver.com. I just learned about it today. So what is Caregiver.com
Sure.
first, and then how did it get started?
Absolutely. That's our website where we have our newsletters, our information, our updated information. It's our home online. We're one of the first 100,000 websites registered. We've been up since '95, and it's all in support of family caregivers. Everything we do is supporting the people we call the CEOs of Caring for Our Loved Ones, Inc., the family caregivers. So thank you for that. That's the easiest way to reach us is just go to caregiver.com, and there we are.
Wow. And Keisha, how did you meet Gary? How did you get involved with Caregiver.com, and what's your involvement with the website?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked me that, because I was going to mention, so when you read my bio, or part of my bio is that I got into caregiving. I was caring for my mom who had stage 4 inoperable lung cancer, and then I was caring for one of my brothers who was placed on life support. But after caring for my mom and while caring for my brothers, I mentioned that I started going to caregiver conferences. And Gary's conference, Caregiver.com, was the first caregiver conference that I went to. And the amount of information, the wealth, the knowledge, the resources that Gary shared, I was just completely overwhelmed. And it's also when I went to that conference and started going to others, that's when I noticed that there was not a lot of people of color and younger people and men that were attending these type of conferences. And so that became a part of my passion to help get the word out about caregiving topics. And so Gary was, he was the first conference that I went to. And that was back in 2016.
Wow. And
I also would want to say it's an honor being here with Keisha, because she is actually, she's being modest, she's our Caregiver Friendly Award recipient for, I think it was year 2018, right before everything hit and we weren't doing in-person events, because that's something we do through the magazine, is award organizations and media and authors and product manufacturers who produce what they produce with the caregivers front and center.
Wow.
And she certainly does.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us, Caregiver.com is a digital and print media?
Yes, Caregiver.com is our online, home, our home online, and we do newsletters and we do videos and we do all sorts of updates and information. We do fearless caregiver interviews with family caregivers who have something to share with other caregivers. But we're also today's Caregiver Magazine, which is our print and digital publication, and the conferences. The one Keisha went to, we call Fearless Caregiver Conferences, because we really want to make sure that the caregivers realize they're the boss, they're the heroes, and we're doing everything we do to make sure they realize how fearless they can be.
And what are some of the topics and resources you can get at a conference, or even just I've just kind of browsed around a little bit on the website.
Sure.
There's a lot of stuff out there that I was just that made me really curious about the
Well,
website itself.
everything
and what
is
you guys
going
do.
about caregivers.
Okay.
Everything is making sure that that they're front and center, that we're supporting them, and basically it's everything we deal with. It's from the stress management to new services we need to know about, to organizations, to how to deal with your loved one's doctor, which is a story in itself, how to stand up to them sometimes when you need to. And veterans are very, very, very big part of our constituency at the conferences and online as well.
One of the things I noticed, there was information a little bit about financial assistance. There were certain things about, like this, getting respite care where someone can come and take over for you for a little bit. Things that a person, when they're thrown into a situation where they have to be a caregiver, you don't know where to go, what to do. You're just taking care of maybe a loved one or a family member, but you don't have the tools or resources available to you, or don't even know where to go to find these resources. And now you have an opportunity to do it through your website and also the media and content that you produce. I think that's really amazing. And I think it's a great tool. But how long have you guys been around? Because I'm surprised that of all the things that I would have thought, and I've tried to find help for different people, I've never ever knew you guys even existed.
Well, we did Chicago event. We've done events, in-person events, in 47 cities in 25 states over 20 years,
Wow.
and virtual events after 2020. And thankfully, I just want to announce that our first in-person event since March of 2020 will be in July in Palm Beach County, Florida. So very, very excited about getting back in the room with the families. We launched Today's Caregiver and Caregiver.com in 1995.
And it's grown to how large is the publication? How many people do you actually reach right now?
A lot. It's like 200,000 on the website.
Wow.
And 35,000 through the newsletter, with another 190,000 through social media, because it's all about supporting the caregiver. It's all about making sure they get that advice and support. They know that they can trust us and that we're there for them, and whatever, same as in the in-person events, whatever questions they come up with, we're going to do our darndest to find the answers.
And then Keisha, it sounds like too also that Caregiver.com is also a place where people can connect and also kind of share stories and kind of get support, emotional support, and also lots of ideas. To sometimes when you're in that situation, it can be very isolating being a caregiver.
Yeah, and that's why the Fearless Caregiver Conference is so good, because, to do things virtually is really good as a caregiver, but sometimes you already isolated as a caregiver, right? But to be able to get amongst a group of like-minded people who are actually tired, burnt out, exhausted, ready to give up, ready to quit. But when you're in that room with others and you have different people that are providing resources or talking to you or saying it's okay, and Gary is extremely personal to the point where if he's on a platform, if he's on a stage, he'll come down, he'll walk up and down the aisles to make sure that you're comfortable, to let you know that you're not alone, that you're not by yourself. And then you leave feeling energized, but not just energized. You've connected with a lot of other people that are going through maybe some of the same things that you're going through. That could be your support for life, or you can be their support for life. And so you're leaving more encouraged.
Wow. Now, on the website, I noticed there was a lot of celebrities on the cover of the magazines. Like I saw Will Wheaton from Star Trek Next Generation. I saw Jennifer Grey, who's known for Dirty Dancing, and also Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Marlou Henner from Broadway, and also the TV show Taxi. So what are their connections to the caregiver, and what's their involvement or interaction with caregiving in general? What are their stories? Why are they on that magazine?
Well, that's exactly the right question, because I'd say caregiving is a great equalizer. If you're caregiver with this famous face, or 12 people in the world know you, and you're caregiving. Things are challenges are different, obviously. Well, I wrote a book called Caregiving Ties That Bind, which is about 150 of these caregiver cover stories, because when you read it, you realize, okay, they're famous, okay, there's money there, but I see that they're also a loving daughter, a dedicated spouse, a parent going through humanity, the human issues that we go through as caregivers. And we found that it just seems to be helpful to realize that no matter who you are, what station you are in life, if you're caring for a loved one, you're caring for a loved one. And we've had many at the conferences, Keisha for one, celebrity, but also Debbie Reynolds, Della Reese, Clay Walker, Clay Aiken. And when you see them in the room with the 250, 300 family caregivers, you're really just seeing a room of caregivers. Mm-hmm. No one asked Debbie Reynolds about Singing in the Rain. They asked about how she dealt with her mother's rheumatism.
Wow.
That's so wonderful.
Wow. Keisha, have you had experiences like that at some of the conferences?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, the camaraderie, you build this network. Like even in the military, we have this network where we consider ourselves our own family. And then when you connect with the caregivers, it's the same feeling that you're in there and you feel like you know that you are not alone. Even if it's just to be able to share how you're feeling, or to not share at all, to listen to someone and you say, oh, I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say it. It's just a great comforting feeling.
Wow. So tell us, what are some of the greatest stories you have to tell us about some of the conferences? I'm really particularly curious about the conferences because that's where everybody comes together. And you do these all across the country, it sounds like. What are some of the touching stories, if you can name two or maybe one or two of those events where something that's really special happened?
Absolutely. Well, we always work hard to have someone from the VA, a VA caregiver coordinator or benefits person there on the panel, and boy, do they get questions from family caregivers. But one year in Philly, we had Della Reese, and lovely, just she was an amazing human being. And there she was on the podium with me, and I was asking her questions and interacting, and she asked about people's caregiving. She wanted to know, and a woman raised her hand. She's far left rear of the conference room, and she said, "Well, I'm here because this is the only place I would be at this moment because my mom's getting set up to go into surgery, and I know I'm going to go there, but I know I need the help here." And then she started talking about how she's helping all the seniors in her community, which is just a few miles from the conference site. And then she starts talking about she had a heart attack and she's had all these problems. And she almost didn't realize she was telling us how desperately in need she was physically. And from across the room, a caregiver raised her hand and said, "I know that community you're talking about. I live there. And from now on, you're not alone."
Wow.
And the next year, we were in the main line in Center City, Philly. They were sitting together the next year, and they told stories about how they were helping the caregivers in the community together. And I just think that's the most wonderful story I have about the power of care, the power of love, the power of community.
Keisha, what about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking when he was saying that, just from that conference that I went to down in Florida, some of the people that I've connected with, one of them, they have a caregiver cruise. Kathy, I cannot think of her last name right now. She has a caregiver cruise. Another came up with an invention. It's a free to go. It's a rollator for caregivers. So you connect with these different people, and that's something else that I really wanted to mention with this conference, that Gary allows different people through the Caregiver Friendly Award, through his conference, people that may have invented different things that are very helpful, those resources for caregivers that you may not otherwise hear about. And so you learn about them at these different conferences, and the very little things that you learn about are very helpful for others, as in the pillaways. I learned about it from the caregiver conferences, and my aunt raves about them. She is telling everybody about
tell
those
us about
pillaways.
the pillaways, how they work again. I can't remember exactly. There's something for. Tell us what they are.
The bed sheets, pillaways.
Yeah. So you put them on and
Disposable.
it's disposable.
Yeah, they're wonderful. He won an award this year, I believe. And I'm sorry, go ahead. I just think he's Maxwell Cohen. He's a great example, like you, of caregiver friendly innovator.
Wow, that's amazing. So these conferences really give you a lot of tools and resources that you can use in your everyday life, but also it gives you a place that you can communicate and also kind of get some support, some emotional support and some just human connection. What do you think is the most, as far as from your experiences, what do you think is the most, I guess, challenging thing about being a caregiver? Is it more financial, or is it the emotional part? Because a lot of times when I talk to people who are going into the role of being a caregiver, the first thing that I hear is typically how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to afford this? And how is this going to affect the family financially? But of course, there's other things that triggers, because if you have a financial stress, that can also lead to more emotional stress.
Absolutely. And then I always say isolation's the killer. There's 66.7 million caregivers in this country alone. And at some point when we get that metaphorical phone call in the middle of the night, dad's been found wandering and the tests have come back and mom's fallen or whatever it is, you think no one's gone through this. I don't know how to do this. And you come to a Fearless Caregiver conference, or you get our free newsletter on Caregiver.com, and you hear your story coming out of other people's mouths. And every caregiver has a piece of the puzzle some other caregiver needs. Every caregiver learns something. You've learned something in your caring for your loved one that I've been desperately seeking. And until I reach out and realize I'm not alone, other people going through this, and I come to events or I go online and I ask questions, I don't have the answers. So I always think that, caregivers are the real expert in care, and we got to make sure we do what we can to have them feel comfortable about opening up and sharing with each other, because that's where the solutions are.
And then do you see that are there more resources available to veterans perhaps than civilians? Do you see that, or is it basically still mostly a level playing field as far as the types of resources that people can get to get either emotional support or financial support, or just having somebody who knows what to do? Because that's one of the things I had to be when my mother had a stroke a few years back. I had to help her for a year or so. It was the biggest thing. I needed to get trained on things like transferring, things like making sure that coming up with different creative ways to help her take her medication on time, things like that.
There's amazing resources for veterans, and more every year. I always say, if you were a caregiver for someone 5 years ago and you get back into it because you're caring for someone else, the whole playing field has changed. You have to go and research your local and federal, state resources again. And as I said, we always have the local communities caregiver coordinator from the VA on the panel, so they can answer questions, or at least have a place that caregiver can feel comfortable asking the questions. I keynoted an event at the Blinded Veterans Association at their Tulsa conference 2 years ago, and that's bva.org, and they're an amazing group for anybody who's had vision issues through who is a veteran. There's speaking of heroes, there's Elizabeth Dole's Hidden Heroes Foundation, and that's Elizabeth Dole Foundation.org. And I've gone to Mrs. Carter's annual gala they were doing in person for a few years, and I met the folks who run Operation Family Caregiver at the Rose and Carter Institute, and just amazing. And actually, I met one of our cover interviews was Colonel Donald Sutherland, who's the chairman of Dixon Center for Military and Veteran Services, and Mrs. Carter introduced me to him. So there's a lot of support for veterans. Obviously, there's challenges, but you need to know your benefits officers in your community. You need to know the caregiver coordinators in your community, and even you need to reach out to the Area Agency on Aging in your community through their helpline, because if they don't have the answer, they'll find the answer. They'll know someone who has the answer.
Wow, this is a question for both of you, but Gary, I wanted to ask you this first. So, what is your prognosis for the future. So because we have an aging population, not just United States but globally, we have an aging population because people are living longer, so the people are having more ailments as they get older. We also seem to be having a shortage of people that are able to of infrastructure that's not quite equipped quite yet to deal with this aging population. Are there resources available? Enough resources being made available to take care of our aging population as more caregivers. You mentioned there's millions of caregivers right now across the country, but when we go to work, we don't realize that the person we sit next to might be going on to take care of a husband or a spouse or a wife or a child with disabilities or a person who's disabled in the home or a person who might need care. We don't see that. We don't talk about that on a daily basis. And so are the resources becoming more plentiful? Are we preparing for this aging population that's coming?
Well, that's a great question, because I think this moment, the 25 years family caregivers, we started when the Help I've Fallen button was new. That technology has really caught up with the support we need as caregivers. We have smart homes, and we're coming on to having some intelligent robot assistant. We have the support, the innovative little support AI dogs and cats that our loved ones with cognitive disorders can have in their lap and feel comfortable with. And in a strange way, COVID has really brought this to the forefront, because the life of isolation, the life of challenge, the life of uncertainty, the life of medical, issues that we as family caregivers have always known, the world has really come to know over these last 2 years. And it's really opened a lot of people's eyes to caregivers and needs of caregivers. So all of these things are coming together right now to offer, I think, more innovative solutions in the next 2 years than we've seen in the last 20 or 25. And that's why we love doing the Caregiver Friendly Awards, because we can bring some of those to the forefront. But also, people now, are inventing products and services because of what they went through, what they needed when they were caring for their mom or their dad or their spouse. And they had an ability and a skill and a thought, and they put it together, and now they're creating solutions for the rest of caregivers in the world.
And with that, we are out of time, unfortunately. We love to have you guys back again. We appreciate your time, Keisha, Gary. Really appreciate the work you do.
Thank you for talking to you, Sean.
My pleasure. Go to caregiver.com, get some advice, get some information, connect with people. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.